So the teams are set. The Ryder Cup is ready to go at Bethpage Black. Time for us at the PGA Tour to figure out who's got the edge and which pairings we want to see on the U.S. team and on the European team. Will Gray, Chris Brees, Alistair Cameron from the PGA Tour. Guys, let's get right to it. Will, objectively, which team is better on paper? Throughout records, throughout who chokes, which team is your eye better on paper?
I will cede the floor to the European to talk about the blue and yellow here. I still think I will give this caveat that as the Euros embark on an uphill battle of trying to win a road Ryder Cup, this is probably about as good of a team as they could put together, given the consistency from 23. But I still think if you're going objectively, if you're going on paper, certainly if you're looking at the betting odds, I would say the U.S. top to bottom has the strength and the depth.
I'm probably with you there, Will. As unfortunate as for me to say that, I'd say given the strength, especially through the FedEx Cup playoffs we saw from some of the U.S. team, it's going to be an uphill battle for my Europeans. It'd be nice to see how they play maybe the next couple of weeks though on the DP World Tour. I know a lot of them are teeing up there, just how we have the U.S. team heading to Napa next week. So it's going to be a difficult one, especially on the road. We know how badly it went at Whistling Straits just a few years ago, but we got a lot of returning talent from Rome, so it'll definitely be a good one. I think going to be a tight one.
And to be fair, both teams have question marks. On the U.S., you can probably pinpoint at least three guys, at least three rookies, who you might have questions on. And then a handful on that European team too, Alistair. Let's look at that European team and the 11 out of 12 players who are back from that 2023 stomping of the United States team. You can look at the bottom of the list of Matt Fitzpatrick, Sepp Straka. Ludwig actually was pretty good last time in his one start on a Ryder Cup. Where do you look at the deficiencies that could potentially be there for the European team?
I think there's outside the few top big names, the Rorys, the John Rahms, the Tommy Fleetwoods, that sort of returning roster from last year maybe isn't in the form that we saw going into Rome. We got 12 names returning if we sub in Rasmus instead of Nikolai, so that's probably a first. But you look at the Hovlands, the Ludwigs, who was good at the start of the season, maybe not in the form that we would like to have seen heading into a Ryder Cup. Obviously, McIntyre got burnt by Scheffler at the BMW during the playoffs, so it'd be nice to see how he comes back off that. But you got the stalwarts and Rory's and Justin Rose. You're gonna rely on sort of that Ryder Cup reconnaissance beforehand and how they've paired with maybe some of the younger, newer blood. So I think that's probably where Donald's gonna have to go. Points mean everything in the Ryder Cup though, so you could send out your top pairing straight away and maybe earn those points quickly in those morning sessions.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the right side of this graphic here, and that's where a bulk of the questions are for me on Luke Donald's European squad. Keep in mind, Friday and Saturday, you're in these sessions where you're only playing 8 out of 12, so 4 guys are going to sit. But Shane Lowry certainly has been a big question mark through the latter half of 2025. Matt Fitzpatrick had a big dip and then started to come on strong, notably at the Open at Royal Portrush, where he started to show some form. Sepp Straka struggled a bit. I mean, making the Tour Championship, that's always a great season, but his January to May was much better than his June to August. So those are some of the question marks. But then you look at the left side there. Justin Rose is playing some great golf after that win in Memphis. Tommy Fleetwood, obviously, as the FedEx Cup champ. Then Rory is Rory. So they're going to need the strength, and they know where the strength is going to have to come from. And then it's a matter of can the other pieces come into place. And then, Chris, as we'll talk about later, it's all about the pairings.
Well, you can look at half of this list probably and feel like they're not playing their best golf right now. And then you look at Justin Rose, who you could maybe put on that list if you take out his hot streak from the last few weeks. So I think there's a concern, Alistair, on the fact that Matt Fitzpatrick has not played well in Ryder Cups. He's getting better and better this season the later it goes on. Straka's not at his finest. Oberg has not been at his finest. McIntyre's been relatively good. You mentioned Shane Lowry, Will. So, Alistair, of the concerns, do you think anybody who is a concern has a chance to step up and play well?
You mentioned Shane and Sepp there. I think those are two names which I think we're going to see the best of at a Ryder Cup. Shane started well out in Ireland this morning, so probably playing himself into form a bit more. Sepp, I think he's an elite ball striker. He doesn't really get flustered by the moment, so I think those two names are ones which, out of the core 6, outside of that, we'd rely on a bit more. Fitzpatrick Obviously, the Ryder Cup's record is always there, but doesn't mean that he can't turn up. Ludwig is a stud, so we will see that come out in true fashion in New York. So I think that core six on the left side, those are the names that we're going to rely on most during New York. But I could see the other names being big factors.
Let's look at the U.S. team now, because if you want to talk about how great the records are for the Europeans, statistically, Will, they have basically the exact same record, win-loss, as the Europeans do, both about 56%, I believe was the number. They each won about 56% of their matches in the Ryder Cup. Justin Thomas, Keegan Bradley called him the heartbeat of the team. If he plays the way he has in previous Ryder Cups, do you think this U.S. team will go maybe as he goes?
It's interesting to think of JT as kind of the de facto team captain. It's going to be a different dynamic with Keegan as the captain, as a contemporary of them. It's certainly something we haven't seen in modern times, but this is a fresh blood team. I mean, this is the first time that Jordan Spieth is not on a U.S. Ryder Cup team since 2012. JT, having played in 4, is the most seasoned veteran of this group, and even more so than Cantlay and Xander, 2 guys that we've seen paired together with some frequency. So, if you go back to the mid 2010s, that was what the whole task force was all about, right? Get some fresh blood in, get some new perspectives. This thing has been a bit of a seesaw that has largely been dictated by home course and home field advantage over the last 10 or 12 years. We'll have to see if that trend gets bucked at Bethpage, given the road team hasn't come within 5 points of the home team in the last 4 sessions. But I think that if you're looking at a team that has more rookies, 4 versus 1 on the U.S. side, still some seasoned guys among that group. But as you try and introduce a JJ Spawn, as you introduce a Cameron Young, how do you correspond with some of these guys? I think a lot of them, or a lot of the pairings, could go through JT, and then certainly I would say Xander Schauffele as well.
Alistair, I don't know if it's fair to say Scottie Scheffler has been bad in Ryder Cups, because in 2021, when he was basically an unknown, beating Jon Rahm, he came onto the scene. He doesn't have a losing record per se in the Ryder Cup, but he didn't elevate his game last time. So when we phase it as JT or bust, Patrick Cantlay's up there, to me, it almost feels like it's going to be the way Scottie Scheffler plays, the way this U.S. team's going to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about potential pairings coming up, and I had my first one as Scottie Scheffler with anyone. So I can't really see him being a weak point, let's say, for the U.S. team. That, like you said, that rookie Ryder Cup he was in, that big win against Rahm, he's going to take that with him forever. I think it was actually a sort of starting point for his career. So I see, Scottie's going to be the main man. JT's there for the presence, along with Patrick Cantlay, Xander, Colin. They've played Ryder Cups, they know what it is, but Scottie's the main man in the room. I think any European going up against him is going to struggle. He could probably take on most pairings by himself. So, I think, look, Scottie, he knows what he's got to do, and he knows how to play golf, and he plays golf better than anyone in the world right now. So that's probably could be the defining point next in a couple of weeks' time. I could see him earning quite a fair few points in New York.
No mention of 9 and 7. We're not going to go back down the road of Marco Simone there, where he's in tears on the golf cart. This is still, they took a drumming 2 years ago, including Scheffler. It was certainly a bit of a low point. He's won a few since then, but there's probably a little revenge, especially if he gets pulled next to either Ludwig or Victor after what they did to him in Brooks Koepka in Italy.
100%. Yeah, I think, we saw those tears, but, he's going to turn those tears into fuel. There's no stopping him, I would say, in New York. It's Scottie Scheffler.
That's what they said last time. We're going to get to pairings in a minute. Before we do, quickly, Will, let's touch on this U.S. rookie lineup, because all of these guys have won this year and have been super hot at times in 2025. Do you have concerns about these rookies?
No, not especially. I mean, I think that I'm fascinated. I think Ben Griffin's the wild card. I think we could absolutely unlock Ben Griffin. He could be a content machine for our purposes, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see him under the lights. J.J. Spawn picked a great year to have a career year. Russell Henley is deservedly among the top 10 players in the world. And then Cam Young is, New York's finest, right? So, and coming on at the right time. So if you're going to bring in a group of 4 rookies, it's easier, I think, to bring in rookies on a home game than a road game. That's a lot of, I believe, what went into that calculus from Luke Donald and from Keegan as well of how they're building their roster. But no, there's not really a weak point on this, particularly knowing that Griffin and Young were picked just last week.
Yeah, going off that, I don't think there's been a stronger rookie class from what I can think of in memory. You've got signature event winners, major champions. You've got a Cam Young who's playing at home in probably the best form out of anyone on the team. So yeah, I think I think if there's ever time to bring in 4 rookies, they're probably the stronger part of the U.S. team. I would say some of the captain's picks maybe going for some Ryder Cup experience just to help get these rookies in, but I would say they would be perfectly fine.
It is a great segue because let's talk about some potential pairings and who we want to see play in the Ryder Cup. Not who Keegan's going to pick and who Luke's going to pick. Cam Young right off the bat and foursomes for you, Will, with Sam Burns. What's the logic there?
This is high variance. Listen, again, these are not pairings that I think will happen. These are pairings that I want to happen. So there's a little bit of an agent of chaos going on here. But I love the idea of pairing a ball striker like Cam Young with the best putter on the PGA Tour this year in Sam Burns in foursomes. Now, granted, that means that Cam Young is putting for Sam Burns on half of those holes, and that's not exactly what we're going for. But I think that is going to be a really interesting pairing. Sam Burns kind of felt, he was tethered to Scotty in those first Ryder Cup and President's Cups that they played together. I feel like that's less so. That's also why I've got Scotty there with Russell Henley, a pairing that we saw in foursomes at Royal Montreal for last year's President's Cup. I think that's just a good luck finding a weak spot in Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley playing alt shot. I think that there's some really high potential there. And then on the 4-ball side, again, high variance with Morikawa and Xander. They have both are accomplished guys, 4 majors between them. Both of them had a 20-25 season that they probably wish went a little bit better. But you put them in this environment on a home Ryder Cup, I really think that could bring out the best of them, and there's a little extra margin for error in the 4-ball format. And likewise, as I said before, I think Ben Griffin could be an X factor here for Keegan Bradley's team. And who better to unlock him than the most seasoned guy on the team, Justin Thomas? I think that could be an energy pairing. Really electrify the crowd, especially if they get a few of those birdies popping in.
Alistair, what do you think? You like this list? Your list is different?
Mine's slightly different. I think the Colin Xander pairing could potentially be a wrinkle in the works. I think they could struggle. Not in the best of form this season. I mean, Colin at the start of the year was playing lights out, but coming into the Ryder Cup, it could be a difficult one. I went slightly different with my foursomes pairings. I went with JJ Spawn and Cameron Young, an all rookie lineup for a foursomes pairing. I think their games complement each other. You got JJ who hits on a rope. It's going to hit every green. That might maybe help with Cameron Young's putting. I think his driving, his putting. I think they're just the stats go well together. And then I went for an all Georgia Bulldogs lineup of Harris English and Russell Henley. Both of them just lights out with strokes gain on total across the board this year. They've got the calmness, I would say, for a foursomes lineup. Nothing's going to phase them. Even though they're the home team, I think New York crowds could get a little rowdy, even if things start going the other way. So I think that's kind of the pairing I'd love to see. And then as for the 4-balls, I've gone Morikawa and Burns. Burns number 1 putter, like Will said, on tour. So I would love to see him go up with Colin Morikawa. Morikawa's going to hit every green. We know that. Maybe Burns is putting, maybe lightens up the pressure for Morikawa on the greens, and he can hole a few as well. And then I went with JT and Cam Young for a 4-ball pairing. JT number 3 on birdie average on tour, Cam Young number 12 on birdie average on tour. I think that's the stat that you need to find for 4-ball. 2 balls in play every hole, and then making birdies. I think that's going to be a hard one to go up against.
I think we're kind of proving the point here, guys, that the U.S. team might hinge on how these rookies do. If some of these pairings come to light, you may have to put some of these rookies in the spotlight to play with some veterans. The European team, Will, does not have that issue because basically everybody's a veteran. They've all played in multiple Ryder Cups, most of them at least. How about your foursomes? Everything goes through Rory McIlroy. What are you looking at for foursomes?
Yeah, I mean, if Rory could play 8 matches, I'm sure he would like to. He was very vocal. And Marco Simone is saying that one of the biggest things on his wish list is to win a road Ryder Cup. So he's going to be fired up for this, even if he ditches the hat, as we might expect. So I've got him in foursomes with his Zurich buddy, Shane Lowry. Those two are great friends. I would love to see them paired together. I think it's going to be a high energy option. I think foursomes could go well for them on the 4-ball side. I'd be fascinated to see him put him with Robert McIntyre, kind of more of a yin and yang, where Rory's got the energy, McIntyre's a little bit more steadfast. Probably could see McIntyre more on the foursome side, but whether it's foursomes or 4-ball, I like the idea of kind of mixing these two together. Two guys that went toe to toe at the Scottish Open just last year and are certainly very familiar with each other's games. And then down at the bottom, let's just go with the hot hands. Let's go Fleetwood and Rose, 2 Englishmen, 2 veterans who just mopped up in the FedEx Cup playoffs and are playing some really great golf. As you mentioned, Alistair, seeing what they do over these next week or two on the DP World Tour could help inform Captain Donald on who's really got the hot hand. But I think that those two playing together in foursomes, Justin Rose is maybe the best alt-shot player in Ryder Cup history, or he's certainly in that discussion. So put him with anyone in that format, and I think you're in good shape. And then running it back, that 4-ball team that dusted Scotty and Brooks, 9-7, Victor Hovland, Ludwig Åberg. I really like the idea of putting the Scandinavians together. Åberg specifically is in a much different class now than he was when he made that rookie appearance in Italy in 2023, and Hovland still has a really high ceiling.
Yeah, difficult to argue with that one. I think there's going to be a lot of momentum going in with that pairing. I'd say personally, the European pairings are going to be a lot easier for Luke. Coming up with my picks was a bit more difficult, ones that I guess we're not going to see, just because I think there's 3 or 4 pairings which are a must for Captain Luke with the Fleetwood, McIlroy, Hovland, Åberg, Rahm, Hatton together. They're points winners. So for the foursomes again, Fleetwood, McIlroy, it's the first session out there in New York. You got to get points on the board straight away. If there's a pairing that's going to get points on the board straight away, it's going to be Fleetwood and McIlroy. They're the strongest pairing the European team has. And then I'm going to go with Rahm and Hatton. I think Rahm is undefeated in foursomes. Hatton is 2-1. Hatton is a greens in regulation machine. Rahm knows when to turn it on. He's going to hole putts whenever he wants. So, yeah, I think those are my 2. And then for 4-balls, I'm going with Rose and Straka. Rose, 5-4-1 in 4-ball. He's just made for the Ryder Cup, like Will said. He's very much improved on approach play this year. And like Straka, like I said, in the U.S. team, birdie average is what I'm looking for. Straka is number 9 on tour, as well as 8th in approach and 8th in strokes gained total. I think he just has the game made for 4-ball. And then final pick, I'm going with Lowry and Robert McIntyre. They're a couple that we maybe thought could be an issue at the start of this whole show, but I think experience combined with youth. I think both of them, look, they know how to deal with adversity. They both have come through the ranks. They understand their games. I just think that's going to be a duo that could turn out really well for us Europeans for New York.
I think just like we talked about a lot hinging on the American rookies and how they perform, so too you're going to need some combination of Straka, Lowry, Fitzpatrick. Someone needs to go 4-1 out of that group. You need a really big positive surprise from one of those veterans, whether it's in one of these combinations or otherwise, in order to give yourself a chance going into Sunday to really pull this thing off.
Yeah, especially on the road. You're not going to win on the road if you don't have those guys do exactly that, especially with the way the U.S. crowd is going to pump them up. All right, guys, it was fun. We got a couple of weeks. We'll digest it, and we'll talk again towards the end of September. We'll see you.
Sounds good.
Thank you.